Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And to start out with, I actually want to give a quick shout out to Yves Prosper. He actually did like an update blog post about 2015, the economy in EVE Online. And also a new episode for Yves Prosper itself. So if you want more content like this one, and I would say that Yves Prosper has a bigger technical, a better technical look at the market than myself, and he also dares to make predictions once in a while. If you want even more EVE Online economy stuff, I would say check out Yves Prosper. Here's his website, yves-prosper-blogspot.com. Here is an EVE Economy 2015 in review. Really interesting blog post. I absolutely love this one. And he also makes market shows just like myself. I've yet to watch this one, but I'll make sure to do that sometimes later today. I personally think it's really interesting, and it might give you like a different perspective or different ideas as well. And I absolutely love what he's doing here. So yeah, quick shout out here to Yves Prosper. You may also notice from the top windows here that I took out the transparency of the windows. This was a request from one of the viewers. So I'll do an episode like this. Let me know in the comments if you think that this is better or worse. Personally, I mean, I like the transparency. I like the fact that there's some animation in the background. As you can see right here, it's basically just a screen where you get different type of pictures like the Concord logo and then the sunshine incursion and things like that. But alright, someone requested it, so let's put transparency at 0 and let's get started with today's EVE Talk. So as always, we will start out with plex, and I'll write down 155 for this one. And plex went up to 1.170 pretty much. Billion ISK for the sellers, buyers 1157, something like that. The margin around 10, 11, yeah, no, even more, maybe 13 million ISK, which is a normal margin for plex right here. But clearly, if we go to the chart here, we went up 5-day moving average, breaking the 20-day moving average. And this was, well, within my prediction, of course. This could be a little bit of a counter push from the Frostline sites and the big sale that we had during the Frostline events here, which caused the price of plex to drop. But we are back on the uptrend now that all of that is over. And well, if the expansion hype is going to start to pick up, we could actually see more demand from players trying to prepare to come back and keep a close eye on that. Well, now, whoops, I've got 1 hour to do this one, should be possible. One thing that I do just notice right here, during at least like the second 2/3 of the Frostline event here, you do see a markedly higher volume here in the trades, way above 2000 plex almost every single day here. I think that is pretty significant, and here we see then the decrease of price. So I would say that could indicate that there is still very high demand for plex. It's just that there was more supply during the Frostline events, and that this is what caused the price to drop. Now that volumes will probably be going back down as the price increase once again, because all of that new supply is not coming in. Who wanted to spend some money on plexes will of course try to do this in bulk during the Frostline events here. Some people may be savvy enough to actually keep some of the plexes back so that they can get more ISK for the dollars that they've spent on them. But I do think that after almost a month of decreasing prices of cheaper plex, when it comes to real life money, we'll actually see a little bit of a counter movement. Of course, a decrease in supply in plex, probably a decrease in volume as well, and then an increase in price as a result, I think is not out of the question. Then of course there is FanFest. There's always plex related things that will come with FanFest, so people ought to be preparing for that as well. And of course the expansion, which we'll get at that point as well. I do think that the stage is set for higher plexes at this point. Taking a quick look at the multiple pilot trading certificate, something pretty similar, of course, dip below 1.1 billion, now on its way back up. The 5-day moving average clearly crossing the 20-day moving average here once again. You see the very same pattern here. In fact, going from, what would this be, maybe 20, 30 of them traded every day to more than 100 or almost 100 traded every day. The increase in volume during the Frostline events is quite visible. I'm told that this spike right here, this huge volume spike and a really big decrease in multiple pilot trading certificates, which caused them basically to jump ahead of what Plex has done, was due to a special sale when you could get them like extremely cheaply, and obviously people do tend to jump on these chances. So yeah, supply being strongly tied to actual real life currencies is a big part as well as to why we're not seeing the huge supply or the necessary supply to maybe drop down prices of Plex and multiple pilot trading certificates. At the moment, the demand for free game time in EVE Online seems to be just too great. Next up, we've got the body resculpt here. That one seemingly finding its price at around 220 million. Sure, the 5-day moving average crosses the 20-day moving average, but they're very closely tied together. And so again, showing that the body resculpt is a little bit of its own thing, a bit of more of a niche thing that doesn't respond as closely to Plex as the multiple pilot trading certificate does. But you do see here the increase in volume, which corresponds with the decrease in price. That is actually pretty interesting. But yeah, watch out for Plex. I think we're in for another wild ride at this point. We'll see in the future if I'm actually right. I'll definitely, of course, keep a close eye on this one. It is, in my opinion, a very strong barometer for the health of EVE Online in general. Moving on to some minerals, 640. Let's write that down. We'll start off with titanium, not Zydrine. Pretty interesting here. Titanium from last week went up just a little bit, about 0.04 ISK, and it's trying to stay right around the 6.3 ISK price mark. So I do see the stability coming back at least to the high-ISK minerals at this point. Let's take a quick look at supply demand here. Supply pretty damn healthy. Look at these latest orders, 300 million, 200 million, another 90 million being brought right here. And then a little bit lower you find some more hundreds of millions of units being supplied to the market. So the sell orders, there's quite a bit of them, and they go from a range that only increases pretty slowly, you know, 636, 638, and then over here 640, 650, 630, 660. So you're not really getting a big jump. There is decent supply at almost all these prices, which is of course going to slow down any increase in price. On the demand side, there is really strong demand. Look at that, 1.5 billion units, 2 billion units that are willing to pay 623 and 624. I would say this gives the edge to supply once again. And of course, from last week, we're up a few cents. This is going to probably increase that pressure in the next few days again. Titanium may go slightly higher, but keep in mind here there are decent volumes on the market as well. Here is a big one of 1.1 billion units as well, 600 million units as well. So I think that we are in a more balanced situation, but I would still have to give the edge to demand though, because seeing 3.5 billion units being bought in the last 24 hours or so does indicate very strong demand at the moment for titanium. So we may go up a little bit, but I think once we hit 640 or maybe go slightly over that, there will be the counter response. People will say, okay, I might actually make some profit on my titanium, and then keep the price in check. So a current trade range of 620 to 640 and an average of 630, I think, is definitely in the cards. Next up here we've got pyrite, bouncing off of 1110 going up to 11.3. So okay, pyrite seemingly a little bit more volatile. As a response, we do have decent supply here. Look at that, 88 million, 62 million, another 60 million being brought in right here. Demand 100, 100 and 400 million right here, 89 days, so also just 4 hours old. So pretty similar situation, I would say. There's decent supply at a price range going up, which should support some more stability. There is strong demand as well. Pyrite went up a little bit. It's just that it's trade range doesn't seem to be as narrow as titanium. So we're talking almost above 11 to 11.5 as a trade range for pyrite, but I'm seeing maybe an average 11.2 to 11.3, something like that, where we could see pyrite in the foreseeable future. Actually think it's again in the cards. More stability in the high-sec minerals is what I'm seeing here. Mexalon, of course, showing that that it is indeed pretty stable here at the moment. 5-day moving average just above the 20-day moving average, but really moving just above 60 ISK pretty consistently. 61 for the sellers, 59 pretty much for the buyers. Supply here almost the front page, well, from here 2/3, something like that. Here we've got 16 million, 18 million, 18 million again on the demand side, 19 million, 20 million, 20 million here again. So this feels decently balanced, and Mexalon managed to do a soft landing. If you want more, a more technical analysis on this, actually take a look at the Yves Prosper blog post. I do actually think he touches on Mexalon being like a bit of a bottleneck at some points, and this is why it's behaving a little bit differently from the others here on the downtrend since October. It's definitely an interesting mineral, because I've seen, if I look back at all of these Eve talks, I have seen Mexalon do some really out of the ordinary things, and sometimes go really high, while all the others just stayed at their price ranges. And yeah, Mexalon has always been one that has made me money when I saw it being very low, buying hundreds of millions of them and then just waiting for the Mexalon to do its own thing a little bit. There are definitely some bottlenecks, there are some technical reasons why Mexalon is actually a bit of a unique mineral amongst maybe all of them, definitely the high-sec minerals. Next up here we've got Isogen. Isogen doing something a little bit different, continuing to contract here in price, going almost towards 105 ISK. So obviously that one needed to correct quite a little bit. Tried to stay around the 115 range for a while, but once we crossed 110 here, we're definitely going even lower. Supply-wise still, well, let me see here. There's not that much coming in less than 24 hours ago. There's a few tiny orders that just put up a price that's really not a competitive price at the moment, which is a little bit strange. On the demand side, yeah, we're definitely seeing pretty much a front page of this with 10 million, 5 million, 5 million. So I would say they are trying to pick it up at 103 ISK though. So I think that Isogen is still trying to find its bottom. The sellers are not willing to just dump any stocks on the market at these prices anymore, considering the history, but the demand just doesn't seem to be there that much. People just want to spend 103 ISK and try to bring the price of Isogen back down. Pretty interesting situation, and something completely different from the other high-sec minerals who are finally showing some stability. We've got Noxium. I'm calling that one an in-between mineral. The reason, of course, is you can mine it from high-sec, but not in that many regions. And of course, you can mine it really quite effectively in null-sec as well. So it has two sources. This apparently gave it a bit of a double whammy. You can see how often Noxium played with a bottom of 470 ISK, which honestly is pretty cheap for Noxium. If I go for the 1-year chart, you can see where we come from. This is obviously bottom behavior. I must say I did buy a few extra stocks at these really low prices, so seeing a bit of a counter response going up here is of course pretty interesting. Seeing the buyers move up to 480, the sellers 488. Let's see where that is on the chart before we actually start to celebrate. Yeah, it's really not that much, of course. A 10 ISK increase is not anything to really write home about, but it is another bounce off of a bottom like close to 465 or something like that. The question is, will this be smacked down with new supply almost immediately? There's still 1.8 million units being brought here, another 2 million here. So people definitely saw the increase in price and are already bringing Noxium back to the market. So I would not be surprised that we won't even go as high as 500, and that it's actually going to start to contract once again. Noxium is a very tricky one at the moment, I think, because it is being plagued by the oversupply situation in null-sec, but it's also being mined in high-sec as well. And so as that, it is the least popular mineral at the moment. It's really at the bottom, and yeah, there is just too much oversupply in Noxium at the moment, apparently. Next up, the actual nullstick ones. Here is Zydrine bumping off of 900, going up towards 1000 once again. So finally a little bit of a correction. Keep one thing in mind though, people will try to take advantage of these prices with their stocks. 27 million units being brought here at 1000 ISK, and the first few orders dipping below 1000 are coming in as well. Buyers at 960. That means that Zydrine is probably not going to cross 1000 ISK anymore, and the new price range seems to be 900 to 1000 ISK for now. The question is, how important is the oversupply, and what kind of a price will Zydrine be able to maintain? But at least if I look at this as a first correction back in like the last 6 months of decreasing prices, then Zydrine, if it starts going back down and starts moving more in a healthy supply demand situation where higher prices increase supply, we go a bit lower again, too low prices decrease supply, but demand definitely tries to pick it up and we go back up again a little bit. Finally, some stability could be shown as well, but it's maybe a little bit too early to actually say that that's going to be the case. Here is Megasite next, bouncing off of 1100, so 1000 to 1100 as a price range could be possible. Still, the question is, will we ever dip back below 20-day moving average on Megasite as well? Supply not that hot in a new supply, less than 24 hours old, despite the higher prices, so people seem to be hesitating. It's going to be interesting. Personally, of course, I am hoping for stability so that I can prepare for the citadels. But you can also here again see with the lower prices, volumes have been increasing slightly as well, and so we are finally hitting a bottom. This is actually pretty interesting that I see this here in Megasite. Are we seeing the same in Zydrine? Not that much. That's interesting. So Zydrine, I think definitely it's in the cards that this could start moving sideways, because we're not seeing the huge volumes and could maybe even have some more downward momentum. But if I look at the volumes for Megasite, people were more and more willing to pick it up at these lower prices, and so 1000 as the bottom seems to really be what we'll be going for here for Megasite. Pretty damn interesting market, and let's take a look if there's been an impact on the Tech 2 market. Tech 1 ship market, I'm sorry. So let's get going here on the Tech 1 ships. Here, first of all, we've got the Armageddon, still around 210 million ISK, moving in this price range. I also got a comment, I think it was on another EVE talk, that the Armageddon is actually not like the big profit tickets that I'm often saying it probably is if you do the math on the minerals. Actually, the Armageddon is more expensive than something like a Raven or the Typhoon, just in mineral cost. So the margin is not that superb. This is probably why we're not seeing that many of them being brought to the market. You can see no recent orders. People are just allowing this to stay here. Volumes, 20, 30 of them every single day. So it's personally, I think it's a little strange that the gap is not being plugged here, that people are not somewhat making Armageddons, but I guess there's just better stuff to make at the moment than the Armageddon, and that this is why this seller's market here stays pretty much empty. I personally think it's a really good ship, so it may just be out of the meta a little bit. This could be why we're not really seeing the supply here. Let's take a look at the Caracal then. Went up above 11.5, but it's already crossing once again the 20-day moving average. So the counter reaction to the higher prices has come in here. You can see really decent supply here in the numbers. So there are Caracals available. And was it a little bit of a buyout? Maybe, but apparently the counter reaction, the plugging of the gap was pretty damn smooth here, because we once again do have decreasing prices and enough Caracals on the market, I would say. Next up, we've got the Dominics jumping up to 205 million here once again. Pretty nice seeing that going from 195 to 210. 20-day moving average moving up to 205. Supply-wise though, that looks decently healthy. Look at that, half a front page of new Dominics coming in, competing close to 206 million. Buyers went up to 200 million, so they are willing to pay for that. Decent demand on this one as well. So this is being actively traded. Yeah, around 50 of them compared to the Armageddon in volumes. That's of course quite a little bit better. So it could be one of the reasons why people are actually moving on the Dominics. When it does move up to 210 million ISK on the Dominics, you were talking a more healthy margin than on the Armageddon. So I mean, the EVE Online sandbox economy is so complex that I'm of course going to miss things. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm really happy to say that you guys are always there to point them out to me. And as we go along here, we keep learning, which in my book is always good. Here's the Drake then starting to normalize towards 53 million, definitely starting to trend down just a little bit. Volumes seem to be pretty stable, and 35 of them coming in despite all of that here. In fact, almost an entire front page of new Drakes coming in at around 53.5 million ISK on the seller side is going to keep putting some pressure on these Drakes, which I think is quite okay. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to see that Drakes are being produced massively at the moment, despite the fact that they're not traded that often, and we do see this gap being plugged quite significantly and a decrease in price in them. Next up here we've got the Mauler taking off a little bit towards 13 million ISK. And I guess, yeah, we do have recent orders, half a front page, but you can see that other than that, there's almost none of them left. So what probably happened here is a buyout of Maulers, a construction of a Mauler fleet by a major Nullsec alliance, bought everything below maybe even 14 million, and then people had to come in here with new supply. The numbers here, let's see, 12, 39, maybe a good 100 Maulers coming in here, daily volumes 50, something like that. So I do think that this will move back down very quickly, but the Mauler is struggling to get back to an 11 million price point, which it had 6 months ago, quite stably so. So the moves on these ships have caused them to increase in price slightly, although keep one thing in mind here, the buyers 10.9 million, they're still trying to stay below 11 million, which I think is, well, quite surprising considering where we've been on the chart lately, but it's pretty good to see that people still probably manage to snatch up Maulers at a price of around 11 million. Next up here we've got the Myrmidon correcting back, went up to 58 million, probably not a bad thing, and then we should see decent supply on this one. So we still have half a front page, around 50 or 60 of them coming in here in the last 24 hours, and here we still have decent volumes. Couple days ago as well, 21, 10 of them here, and there's plenty of them. So the Myrmidon correcting a little bit, bouncing off of 54 million, but hopefully will start stabilizing. This is what I'm hoping, honestly, is that as minerals stabilize for maybe a few weeks, a few months, after that we'll see that happening in the Tech 1 ship market as well. One thing that needs to happen for that though is that we need to have the industrial potential to make enough ships for the players to lose out there. So if that's not happening, we'll continue to see this volatility, sometimes extreme volatility in some of them. But at least here in the Oracle you can see a decrease in volatility. Oracle settling at around 80 million. There is Oracles available on the market here, going from 90 million to like 80 million. So looking pretty good for that one to continue to stabilize. Next up here we've got the Raven trying to find its price as well at 185 million. There's decent amount of Ravens on the market here. Next up we've got a Stabber. Yeah, still slowly trying down. You can obviously see that the high peaks here are decreasing as well. We're now moving to a trade range of 11 to 11.5 million, slightly higher than 6 months ago. But of course natural inflation is going to play its role as well. Not that much demand, a front page of just one page of supply here. So seeing that there's not that many Stabbers, we should have pretty low volumes of these. Well, here there was one really big volume spike, so someone probably bought them out. That was the increase in price from 11 to 11.5 million, and so now people are starting to bring them in at 11.4 million. So there is obviously going to be this little counter movement. What's interesting is that that one big volume spike seemed to be a little bit late, hasn't really corrected the price upwards. And yeah, this is a little bit strange, honestly. The Stabber, low volumes on the market, one really big volume spike, no big price response. Pretty interesting. I guess it was just pretty much ignored right here. That is quite unique, but at least we're seeing some signs of stability showing up here as well. Next up, we've got the tornado. Again, peaks at 80 million, 78 million, now going up from 72 million, which was actually like a bottom price for the last 6 months or so, and now going back up. Sellers are at 76 million, so that's still well within range of decreasing volatility. Next up here we get the typhoon. That is not in range for decreasing volatility, so this could really be the example of the market not really being able to follow sometimes not being able to follow the volumes needed by the player base at the moment. You can see the really big volume spikes right here, and the typhoon taking off from 178 to 196 million. We're pretty much empty of them. All of these orders are less than 24 hours ago, so the typhoon is probably a good bet if you can actually build some on short notice. That could be really good, and this is of course a big buyout. A couple of alliances must have made some typhoon fleets or bought out some typhoon fleets, and here is of course the response. The question is, by next week, how many typhoons will have been brought to the market? How big will the response back down be? But this does show that I think the industrial potential just isn't quite up to snuff at the moment. Which makes of course for a more interesting market if you want to find those opportunities. Next up here we've got the Vixor. That one does obviously show its stability between 11.5 and 12 million ISK. Decent supply as well, still new ones coming in as well. Here around 50-60 of them in the last 24 hours as well. So the Tech 1 market, I'm still seeing signs of more stability. Maybe as the minerals stabilize we'll see even more of them, but I'm still slightly worried about the industrial potential, the volumes out there, because sometimes you do see these things happen like here in the typhoon, where basically the market is bought out, and we used to have an immediate response here. We used to have way more of them coming to the market on very short notice, plugging that gap, decreasing the price. The problem, I think, is that you're seeing these decently volatile charts because the typhoon never fully recovers back to like a price point of 178 before another ship is hit, and then people need to decide, am I going to build more typhoons, am I going to build the other opportunity, and thus we see more volatility, and so it's going to be interesting honestly to see how all of this is going to pan out. Is it the mineral prices that are behind this? Is it just that there's less industrial potential happening at the moment in EVE Online? It's a possibility as well. Definitely something that I'll try and keep an eye out for if I can dig up more information on that. Moving on to Tech 2 ships, 27, 25. Let's take a look at some trade opportunities if we can find them, because unfortunately, just as in the Tech 1, volatility did seem to decrease, although on individual ships it still happened. In the Tech 2 market, it's pretty much been something that's happened across the board. So here for the Basilisk, it's like a really good example of this. You can see the peaks just decreasing in height, and then you can see the bottoms like just staying right where they are. 20-day moving averages decreasing in volatility more and more until we settle right around the 185 million price mark. Sellers 189, but just look at the numbers here. There's still just too many of them, and as a result we just don't see the volatility needed to actually do some trades in these. Cerberus is pretty interesting here. I did spot, I think, this really low price below 180 seemed like a good idea to try and make a move on it, and I think it would have paid off. I think last week we still had buy orders below 180. Now we have buyers at almost 200 million, sellers at 215. If you'd been able to buy these at, let's say, 180, then we're talking an easy 35 million profit, but it's not like a 1 week spike. This took almost a month to actually happen. So this is slower. A slower pace in volatility, but this was of course a trade opportunity. I think calling the bottoms is way more important these days in the Tech 2 market if you want to make some trades. Here's the Guardian. At least it tried right from 130 to 150 almost. Now we're back down towards 130. Buyers are 127. It could be interesting, but there are decent volumes on the market remaining. You have to gamble a little bit that someone is gonna basically buy a Guardian fleet at this point, and then yeah, buying them below 130 is probably not a bad investment. But again, nothing really short term to spot here. Here we've got the Hound coming off of 17 towards 18 million ISK. Not that bad, but just look at the volumes. Honestly, I'm actually thinking that this is going to die down quite quickly, and that will be meandering around the 17 million price mark pretty soon. I would love to see these stealth bombers come back into the volatility range that we used to have, but at the moment I just don't see it happening. Let's hope that they can actually prove me wrong on this one. Next up, the Ishtar. The Ishtar did really well last week and is actually adding to that. So if you manage to buy these below 160, current sellers are at 185, buyers are at 180. So there's obviously been a nice little profit to be made in the Ishtar, but again, decently slow movement. The actual buy opportunities was close to 155 as an actual bottom. It was very hard to actually tell that one, considering the first part of the chart, and now it actually took like almost 2 months to get to this high price point for the Ishtar in several waves. It is not the real big volatility that we used to have in the Tech 1 market. Next up here, the Manticore. That one did quite well, going from 20 million to 28 million in, well, maybe 2-3 weeks, something like that. So that was all right, but I've been really hesitant when it comes to the stealth bombers, and the Manticore as well tends to show maybe one of these spikes in 6 months or so. So if this dies back down towards 20 million in short order, let's see where the buyers are at. Well, they're starting to come in with decent volumes at 26 million, well, even closer to 25 million pretty soon. This will be short-lived, and then look at how long we've had to go without any opportunities. I just don't like these stealth bombers that much at the moment. Nemesis proving me wrong though, although I did notice this as an actual bottom. 17 million for Nemesis, extremely low price. We're now back up to 19.5 million. Definitely a good profit to be made, but once again, look at where the bottom was more than a month ago. So this is not the snap trading every week where you can actually just buy a couple of really low ones and then unload them a week later or anything like that. It's a bit more slow at the moment, I guess. But the Nemesis, there was an opportunity, and I definitely called that one as well, saying that buying these below 17 million, you're probably not doing a bad thing, but keep this in mind. It's probably going to be a bit of a medium-term trade at this point, and it would have made you quite a bit of money. I mean, the buyers, the sellers are approaching 20 million, and the buyers have had to go up to 18 million, so not that bad. Next up here, the Oneros also taking off. It's again like the Guardian. It's trying, but how much volatility does this still have left in it? From 140 to 170, not bad. Then from 145 to 175, actually not bad again. Went down below 145 again, looking like a bottom. But there are 157. Something like that, which is not that high just yet. So is this another slow burn up? It is possible considering the other ones, but just look at the volatility of these increases in price. That is of course what personally I'm looking at for actual trade opportunities on the short term. So the Oneros, it's too late to buy. It's probably too early to sell. Will the opportunity arrive in a few weeks? Possibly. We'll have to wait and see. Next up here, the Purifier doing quite alright as well. Finally, well, still bombers are actually showing me wrong in this very episode here, because we used to have this decrease in volatility, but we broke out here to 22 million. You would have been able to buy them for probably 17 million, something like that. Despite really high volumes, still close to 22 million. So there was an opportunity here for the Purifiers, just a little bit risky in my book. And then here we've got the Scimitar. I probably called this bottom, can't quite remember to be honest. Going up to 140 from 120 is quite okay, but I do think that this could just be normalizing. So if you did buy them here, of course, good on you. You may consider trying to sell them at this point already, because honestly 140 has been an average in the last 6 months or so. So I would not be surprised that this is not an actual big spike up. But again, we'll have to see, because the speed of this volatility has obviously decreased. Here is the Vengeance then, that went up from 19 to like around 21 million last week. It's obviously starting to stop already. There was a slight trade opportunity. There's not that many of them here, but again, I don't like the assault frigates that much, because basically two opportunities now in the last 6 months of a trade that will only be just about 10% is just not enough to say that this is trade worthy. Next up, Tech Tree market around 3450, write that down. Let's just take a look at these here. The Confessor, obviously the last 6 months went up quite substantially after the launch, from 35 to around 65 million ISK. What is the supply looking like? That's at least decent. Half a front page of new ones, around 150 of them or so, but behind that there is not that much support to stop the price from increasing in a volatile way if these were to be bought out all of a sudden. Volumes are pretty high compared to the supply here, so be careful. Yeah, the Tech Tree market does seem to have some volatility in it. We saw the Hecate jump up to 70 million from 55. Definitely a pretty good jump. The response has come in though, and as you can see here, more than a front page of new ones. We're talking hundreds of Hecates being brought on the market here, decreasing the price. So the response is there, but the trade opportunities may just be spotted in the Tech Tree market as well. The Jackdaw though showing some stability around the 60 million price mark. Decent supply of Jackdaws. I would not say that there's that many of them, so be slightly careful of that. But I think the Confessor is in a little bit more of a dangerous position than the Jackdaw, considering that we have more than a page of them here. And then finally we'll take a look at this Vapor first here, going up to 70 million. Obviously the trend in 6 months has been up quite substantially, but there is decent supply, a full front page of new Vapors. We're talking probably around 200 of them, so this will stop the increase in price, but we end up as high as 70 million. Not bad at all. Honestly, if you take a look at the 1 year chart where they actually started out, if you invested in them at these really low prices where they stayed for a little bit, at this point you would have made quite a bit of money, pretty much doubling it, of course in a 6-month period. Keep that in mind. Then let's take a quick look at the cruisers here. The Legion stabilizing at around 180 million, I'm sorry. Decent volumes here. That could take a while. Some new ones coming in as well, so it could take a while for volatility to show up, but we've seen that it is been pretty unpredictable in the Tech Tree market, so be careful on this one as well. But at least there's some Legions to soften the blow if it does come. Next up here, the Loki went below 180. There is decent amounts of them still here. I would say more Lokis than Legions, because here we've got maybe a couple of them at 20. The Loki we've got here more than 100 units. That will slow down any increase in price, so still be slightly careful. Here we've got the Proteus bouncing off of 180. What's this supply looking like? Yeah, not that hot either, honestly. I mean, there are Proteus on the market, but it's in pretty low volumes. So this increase in price here just basically happened. Sellers 205 million, 205 right here. So new ones, well, not that many. Yeah, be pretty careful, honestly. And here we have the Tengu actually going up to 200 million from 190. And volume wise, this is a little bit better here. People seeing that they can sell Tengus at 200 million, almost a full front page of new Tengus coming in, but the volumes are not what they used to be. And I guess the fact that we now have 8 Tech Tree ships has definitely decreased the volumes on the individual ones, causing more volatility and higher prices. Pretty interesting stuff, I think. Yeah, the Hecate of course is going to go down. That one has some pressure on it. If we look at the Confessor, well, 112 units here is not bad. Here we've got the Jackdaw, maybe again more than 100 units. And what is this Vapor looking like? Pretty decent as well. So the Confessor may be at risk, and then honestly the Legion, is doing some of these Tech Tree cruisers. There are just not that many of them on the market at the moment, and they are for pretty high prices. So I would say be careful, because just a small volume of purchases can drastically increase or decrease the price at this point and have a pretty major impact. Volatility in the Tech Tree market. We've known it to be different for quite a while, like around 6 months ago or a year ago or something like that. Pretty nice, honestly, to see that coming back here, showing again that the sandbox may yet be alive. And then finally, for the extra product here, 40 minutes. Whoa. Pretty long episode on this one. You may know that I've been joining these Drifter Hive fleets, and people ask, well, what's the payout of these? I donate my shares, so I don't really know, but we'll take a look at these elements that's actually the loot that you get from these, and see what they're going for. And they're being sold for around 1 billion ISK at the moment. There's 20 of them on the market. You can clearly see that it's a very small group of people that actually make these and bring them to the market, so they get to dictate the price. And on a single run, they make around 6 of these. So divides around 6 billion across a fleet of 25 to 30 people. Then you've got an idea of what kind of a payout you get for doing one of these. Here is the conflux element. All of these, basically, it's just one party that is making these available for 1 billion ISK at the moment, which should give you a slight idea on the actual value of doing one of those Drifter Hive runs. Keep in mind there is some blue loot being looted as well as we go through this, which honestly, there's battleships in there, there's salvage in there, so it could be slightly higher than just 6 billion, but this should give you an indication of what these are going for at the moment. Volume wise though, it's not that hot, of course. But this is a pretty unique item, and the fact that you can join this openly, I think, makes the consortium operations Drifter Hive raid something pretty interesting for anyone that wants to join them. So there you go, guys. That's going to be it for EVE Talk. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you prefer without transparency or with transparency. And thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.